tonight, I thought I would start with you. I have a question about odor pollution in the city of Albany. There's where I live, there's a restaurant that opened up a while ago that has an incredibly strong smell of basically burnt meat that comes into my house every day when they do the meat in the morning. And it's really changed my life. I don't eat meat for starters, and it's just also a very strong smell. And so I went down and talked to them today and found out how they're venting, and the vent goes straight up in the air. And so I guess it depends on how the wind's blowing, maybe. I'm not quite sure. I'm about a half a block away. So anyway, I don't know if that fits under Climate Action Committee or if there's another committee that I should go to. So I thought I would start with you and see if anybody has any thoughts about it. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other members of the public who would like to speak to an item not on the agenda? I see one other. Oh, I see someone raised their hand and then lowered it. Okay, Elaine Stelton. You are muted.
Hi, first of all, and thank you for your service. I wanted to ask you if you could potentially announce the number of participants or people viewing this. Well, I understand that people can see during this meeting. For recordings in the future, just, for posterity, we want to know how many people are attending these meetings. And it would be great if you could announce periodically the number of people who are tuning in. Thank you so very much.
I can quickly answer. We currently have 6 members of the public on today's meeting, and we typically have an average of 1 to 7, I would say. Okay, next speaker is Lucinda Young. Lucinda, you may be on mute.
Yes, hi. Yes, I do have one matter on my mind that I wanted to bring up, and that is the gas-powered leaf blowers, which a number of cities around the state have banned. And the city of Albany does not have a ban in place. The state, California, passed a law recently that prohibits the sale of these devices beginning, I believe it's 2025 or maybe 2024. However, the use of this equipment can continue indefinitely. I mean, the new state law will begin the phase out. But some of the local cities that have banned these devices are Alameda, Berkeley, Los Altos, Los Gatos, Menlo Park, Mill Valley, Mountain View, Oakland, Palo Alto, Piedmont, and Tiburon. And there are many others in other areas of the state. And these devices cause environmental and health problems. Besides the deafening noise pollution, dust, and blowing herbicides and pesticides. And the California Air Resources Board says that using a leaf blower for an hour emits as much smog-forming pollution as a 2016 Toyota Camry does driving for 1,100 miles. And I would like to see the city consider joining our other sister cities in banning these. Short of that, I was very disappointed to learn that our city public works department still uses these. And I think at a very least, our city needs to explore discontinuing these devices and moving to if they even have to use leaf blowers, moving to electric leaf blowers. I understand El Cerrito does not have a ban. However, its public works department no longer uses them and does use electric leaf blowers. So I think it's really important that our city government, at a minimum, be a role model for the rest of the city. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak on an item not on the agenda? Okay, if not, back to you, Chair Fasoon.
Okay, should we go down to announcements?
Yes.
Item 4. Okay, let's start with item 4-1, sustainability events and resources.
Sorry, briefly, Chair Fasoon, if you'd like, I can just respond to that first comment about.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah.
I don't have a specific answer on that, but I think we might be able to help that resident at a staff level, at least get started on seeing if we might be able to help with that issue. So I just recommend to that resident to email a staff member. If you'd like, you can email me. My email address is mplose@albanyca.org.
Okay. Does anyone else have any thoughts before we move on? Okay, then now we can go on to item 4-1, sustainability events and resources.
Okay. I have two things to mention today. First is that we had a very popular household hazardous waste drop-off event in the city in July. All spots filled up, which is, I think, over 600 spots. And there was a lot of demand for a second event. We are hosting a second event on October 2nd. Residents of Alameda County do need to sign up for an appointment, and space is limited to about 600. And as I mentioned, the last one filled up. So please go to stopwaste.org/HHW to sign up for an appointment today and to learn more. I also want to share a resource that we have related to gas-powered garden equipment, including leaf blowers. In the past, this committee has analyzed leaf blower and gas-powered equipment bans, and the recommendation was for staff to do an outreach campaign and create a fact sheet. That fact sheet is available on our albanyca.org website under Sustainability Environmental Policy. There's a leaf blower alternatives fact sheet, and we try to periodically put information out on our social media channels to encourage not using gas-powered equipment and providing links to resources on how to find alternatives. Just for a quick summary, I'll use this opportunity. The reason that we decided to go with outreach instead of a ban is because there's significantly lacking staff capacity to enforce a ban, and that staff time has been used to do other environmental projects. But it is something the committee has considered. So just want to draw everyone's attention to that resource that is available on our website. I'll pause here in case there are questions. Committee Member Peterson?
Yeah, I have a question. I think I asked this last time. I'm not sure if I have something that I want to announce about a sustainability event or resource. Is this the time I would ask to present it?
Let's do it after the update on the heat pump rebate program. So after the 4th announcement. Okay, any other questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none, I do see members of the public with their hand raised. I am going to call for public comment after we conclude announcements. Okay, next is a very exciting announcement, and you've probably already seen him on screen, but I would like to introduce our new committee member, John Mickey. And committee member Mickey, I would like to invite you to unmute yourself and provide a brief personal introduction to the committee.
Sure. Thank you so much, Lizzie, for that. So I was fortunate enough to move to Albany in 2005. I moved into the University Village as I attended KALB. I was getting a master's in urban design at the time. I will tell you, my first reaction was, why did the university put me 3.5 miles away from campus? But my young family and I fell in love with Albany. We were fortunate enough to find a house here, bought a house, and end of 2006, moved into that house. During that time, I served on Traffic and Safety, which is now called Transportation Commission, from 2010 to 2013. And I really enjoyed my time there. I really enjoyed working with the fellow commissioners and the public. Had a great relationship with staff. Things got busy in my house, both with my kids getting into high school, and then I was traveling quite a bit at the time for work. So I stepped down, and I'm really excited to be able to give back to the community, and I'm excited about the work that you all have been doing, and excited to be joining you all.
Yeah, welcome.
Yes, welcome. We're glad to have you on board.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, I will pass to Michelle for update on multifamily electric vehicle charging pilot program.
Thanks, Lizzie. So for those new members, we have a multifamily electric vehicle pilot program that I have been working on for the past several months. This program is intended to help multifamily buildings install EV chargers for their tenants. It's a pilot program, so I'm working with 3 multifamily buildings in the city, and we're funding up to $15,000 for the EV chargers, and I'm also kind of working closely with them, giving them technical assistance and guidance. And that program has been going really well. We selected our 3 buildings in the spring, and throughout the summer, I worked with them on getting contractors to come and give quotes, kind of thinking through the different types of installations that would work for their buildings. And at this point, we've received all of our quotes, and now I'm working with those building owners to choose between the contractors and kind of make final decisions about what the projects will be. And then at that point, they'll sign a contract with the contractor and with the city, and then we'll move into the construction phase. And I'm very hopeful that we're going to have the chargers installed by the end of the year. There's a little bit of variety with the different buildings. It looks like one of them will have 2 chargers, one will probably have 12, and the other might have 5 and might have 8, still kind of TBD. But we're getting close to actually installing some chargers. I'm also starting to work on a guidebook of sorts for tenants to give them information and resources about electric vehicles and about the chargers that will specifically be installed in their buildings. So yeah, that's my update. Happy to answer any questions. Yeah, Member Peterson.
You said, so basically one building, I guess it's smaller, you said was having 2. Was that the smallest number of chargers?
Yeah, that's right. It's an 8-unit building, and it'll have 2 chargers that are spaced to give access to 4 of the spaces.
Oh, okay. And then one's having 12. Is that how many units in that building?
That's a 12-unit building.
So for each one, wow.
Yeah.
And then and then one possibly 6 to 8. And is that like an 8-unit building?
That one is, yes, an 8-unit building. And we're still kind of figuring out how many chargers we have the capacity for.
And I guess what was sort of the driver on the number? Well, I guess my real question is the building owner partnering in and ponying up? Do they have skin in the game? I imagine they do.
Yeah, we're requiring all of the building owners to contribute some of the funding for the project. So there's a maximum city contribution of $15,000, but regardless of how much the city ends up contributing, we are requiring the building owner to contribute some of that funding. We don't have all of the details worked out just yet, but they will be putting skin in the game, as we said.
Great.
Member Larson?
Yeah, 2 questions. One is for each place, how many electric vehicles do they already have at the apartments? Do they already have electric vehicles, or are they just considering?
As far as I'm aware, there's one building that has 1 electric vehicle right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, wow, that's great. And then the second question is a little bit more, maybe a topic for a future meeting, but can you give us any feedback about what you learned as far as the motivation for the building owner that got them, into doing this? Because like we just said, they have to pay some money into this as well. So what were some of the motivating factors for making the decision to go with this?
Yeah, great question. I also just in general, part of the goal of this program was to provide staff experience and kind of learn a lot about this. And I have been learning a lot. I've been gaining a lot of insight. So I'll definitely be coming back after the program's finished, with a much more detailed report. But the main thing I've heard from the building owners is that they just really believe that electric vehicles are the way of the future and that this is going to be necessary for their buildings not very long from now. And so they just think they want to get ahead of it. They want to have that as an amenity and are assuming that in very little time that's going to be expected from their tenants. So they just see this as a great opportunity to forge ahead.
All right, cool, thanks.
Member Mickey?
Thanks, Michelle. I had a question. Is this program, who's paying for the electricity? Is it the building owner, the tenants, or is there, and so that's one part of the question. The second part is are you working with a third-party provider? Like, is it like, they have charging stations and they have the companies that you pay, or is it the building owner that's really installing and maintaining?
Yeah, so in the case of these three buildings, they're going to have a contractor come and install the charger. It's not one of these kind of charger services. It's just the charger itself. And there are a few different ways that the billing might happen. Some of those haven't been totally worked out yet, but in some form or another, the tenant is going to be paying for the electricity.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Member Peterson?
Yeah, so to kind of follow on that, does this include metering or do the chargers have an ability to keep track of metering and amounts? Yeah,
so the chargers that all three of the building owners at this point have decided to use the wall box chargers, which do have tracking and metering capabilities.
And then just a final question is there some ongoing outreach to the tenants in these buildings now to make them aware of whether they can, sort of helping them go electric, let's put it that way?
That's one of the things that I'm going to be working on in the next month. Now that we know a little bit more about what the installations are going to look like, then I'm going to go and give that information to the tenants, as well as more general information about electric vehicles and rebates available, all those kinds of things.
Wow, thanks. This has been great. This has been like a perfect pilot.
It's been fun for me too. Very informational. Any other questions? Okay. Chair Fasoon, should I move on to 4.4?
Yeah.
All right. Another update. So this is an update on the heat pump rebate program. This program offers rebates for heat pump HVAC systems that are installed in the city. $1,500 for a ducted system, $750 for a ductless system, and a $1,000 rebate for electric panels when they're with a heat pump installation. And this program, it launched in June. And since then, we've had a lot of success with getting interest in our outreach. I did a lot of outreach just kind of in our social media channels and newsletters, those sorts of things, flyers. And I also did direct outreach to contractors that do a lot of HVACs in the city to make them aware of the program. And then we also, I partnered with Stop Waste / Bayren to hold a webinar this summer as well. So that included a mailer that went out to all of the homeowners in the city, inviting them to the webinar and telling them a little bit about the program. And we had a contractor who does a lot of work here, as well as a homeowner who got a heat pump a few years ago, and they came and talked to everybody too. And it was really quite a success. We got 160 people who registered for the webinar and 80 who attended, which is a really, really high number. Some of these county-wide webinars get much less than that. So we were really pleased. And we had a ton of engagement as well. I think we stayed on for another 15 or 20 minutes just trying to answer everyone's questions. So many great questions, so many people who were just really getting excited about this and learning a lot about heat pumps. So I think it's been a really effective tool for spreading the word and getting people interested. And I've also had about 25 conversations over phone and email with various residents who have told me that they're planning to get a heat pump, asking questions about the program, working with contractors. At this point, we have only had 3 actual rebate applications. One of those has been paid out and 2 are still in the installation phase. So it's been a little bit slower on the actual rebate uptake. I think the main reason for that is because there's a real lag between someone deciding to get a heat pump and actually getting a permit, which is the point at which they can actually apply for the rebate as well. So, and especially because contractors are really busy right now. So there's been some time lag there. And I'm also expecting that quite a few people will be delaying their installation until the new year because there are new tax credits available, which I'll chat about in a later part of this meeting. But yeah, so the actual numbers of rebates have been relatively low to start off, but we've had a lot of interest and a lot of engagement. Again, happy to take any questions. Okay.
Thanks, Michelle.
That's great.
Member Peterson, you have a question?
Yes, I did. Sorry. There was the doubling for low income. Has there been any interest from low income homeowners?
Yes. I don't think any of the rebate applications we have so far are low income, but we have had people interested in asking about it.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay. If there are no other questions, Chair Fasoon, I think we can open it. Oh, actually, Committee Member Peterson, you wanted to provide an update, an announcement?
Well, would it be good to get the public comment on these ones that happened already? I mean, mine isn't.
I think we should do all public comments and then, or sorry, all announcements and then take public comment at the end.
Okay. So I wanted to let you know I've been participating in what are called local energy resources network seminars that happen. They're on the second Tuesday of every month at 11, and it's a webinar. And they just provide. I think this is done by Civic Well, which was formerly the Local Government Commission, and they just do a really great job of running down. All the grants coming, what's coming federal, what's coming state, what's coming regionally. These are usually attended by about 60 to 70 local government people from all around the state. And I found it hugely informative. And I was hoping, well, also there's a once a year, the California Climate and Energy Collaborative has their, in fact, it's happening today and tomorrow, their 13th annual forum in San Diego, and which is something that, if we had been on the ball, I think it would have been great to send Lizzie down to, or have someone at least participate. There's a lot of really good shared information going on. So I can provide more information. You guys, I don't know if you're aware of it or if you've ever tried attending them, but I think they're a really good source, especially for financial information and grants that are applicable to what local governments are doing. There's a lot of technical assistance available too. I think Johnny came through that, with they do the Civic Spark also.
Correct, so, yes.
Anyway, I just wouldn't mind knowing if that's something that staff is taking advantage of and participating in, because I think at least an hour a month is probably a good idea, seeing as all the good information it provides. Thanks.
Yeah, we do receive the Civic Well emails that have information on grants and resources. We do have a grants manager contractor for the city who also hears this information and whatever seems applicable to city projects and we have the capacity to apply for and implement, we consider. But thank you for sharing. It's great that you're attending them as well. Okay, Chair Fasoon.
Should we go ahead and open it to public comment? I see hands raised already.
Yes. Okay. The first person to speak to this item, and just to clarify, this is public comment for any of the announcements we just covered. Jeremiah?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. This is Jeremiah Garrett Pinguello. I just want to say it was great seeing Michelle last night at City Hall. Also, so speaking about the electric blowers, gas, instead of the gas-powered weed eaters and lawnmowers and some sort of those power tools, right? Maybe chainsaws of that nature. You do have resources available. You mentioned, I was just wondering, what are some incentives? I didn't hear the word incentive at all. And what are some incentives for people or small businesses in Albany or residents to convert to electric? Is there some sort of, you know, maybe next year some sort of tax rebate or some sort of, is the city, I mean, obviously the city's funding $15,000 for the electric charging stations, but is there any funding available maybe from the state or some program to help purchase these tools, some sort of incentive, right? Something like that. That's one question there about the incentive. And then number two is the electric car charging stations. You mentioned there's 3 apartment complex buildings to do this for, you know, city staff experience and also to change the world. So I was just wondering about the property owners. Are they different property owners, or is it just the standard, you know, Eichner Rego group doing these and, you know, doing these projects? I was just hoping that these projects are available for the average apartment owner or things like that, maybe duplexes or whatever. But yeah, so the question here is, are the apartment complexes that you're doing this pilot program with, are they each different owners, or are they all the same owner kind of situation going on? Thank you.
Okay. Next speaker is Lucinda Young.
Yes, I just had a couple of questions and comments. First, on the heat pump rebates, we're actually in the process of talking to contractors right now too, and it is taking a long time just to get people to come out. And my recollection is there was a fixed amount of funds that Albany had allocated for the heat pump rebates, and that the rebates would be available until those funds were completed. I just wanted to see if I recalled that correctly and what the amount of that was. Something, my memory says about 40,000 or something like that. Is that right? Okay. So we're not any place near that 40,000 then if there have only been 3 applications, because I think we are also waiting until January of next year because that's when the Inflation Reduction Act tax credits and rebates kick in. So that was one of my questions. And then the other, I think Jeremiah had a very good question about whether there are any rebates or tax credits I don't think there's anything locally because I haven't heard anything about it, but I'm just wondering if the state or if federal under the Inflation Reduction Act, if there are any tax credits or rebates to assist people transitioning this landscape equipment from gas to electric. I haven't heard anything about that. And I think, and also I'm just great to hear about this, the electric charging station program in multi-family units. It's really great to hear that. I was just speaking with somebody last night who lives in a multi-family unit, not in our town, in Richmond, who would really like to get an electric vehicle. And he said it's just not even, he can't even consider it because there's no ability to charge it in his residence. So I think this is a really important program. Glad to hear it. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker is Elaine Stelton. Elaine?
Hi, I have a small apartment building, and I actually didn't know till today that one of my tenants does have an electric car. The reason it came up is we had some concern for the safety of his catalytic converter. So when that came up, then I realized, yes, maybe I do need one of these charging stations. So I am a bit confused, though, if you're offering $15,000 for these charging stations. And you mentioned, you know, in one case, one building has one charging station, in another case, it has 12. It seems like a very much a disproportionate amount of money. You know, for example, if I put in a charging station, would the city be giving me $15,000 for it versus somebody who owns a has a 12-unit apartment building with 12 charging stations? I didn't quite understand the math. So I would very much like to know more, and I will continue to follow this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is David Wemmer. David?
There we go. Hey, no, I just wanted to thank you all for the great work on the chargers in the multi-unit residences, the program. Just great to see good progress and also to hear that the owners are seeming to be enthusiastically embracing our future here. So thank you very much.
Okay, at this time, I don't see any other members of the public with their hand raised. So back to you, Chair Fasoon.
Chair Fasoon, I can answer those questions that they brought up if you'd like.
That'd be wonderful.
Okay, I think I've got them all jotted down. In terms of incentives for electric leaf blowers and other equipment, I don't know of any state or federal programs at the moment, although I remember some time ago hearing that there might be some developing. So that's something I'm happy to check up on and add to our resources if they've been developed at this point. In terms of the EV charging program, the 3 building owners that we're working with are separate building owners, all different. And then in terms of how the program works, so it's a pilot program that is working with just those 3 buildings at this time. And with each of them, there's a maximum of $15,000, but the actual amount is going to vary depending on the project. And as I said, each owner is required to contribute some to the project. So the $15,000 isn't going to apply to each of those buildings. It will vary depending on the number of chargers and the cost of the overall project. And then for the heat pump rebate program, there is a $40,000 fund for the program, and it's first come, first serve until those funds run out, which we are not close to at the moment, seeing as we've only actually given out 1 rebate so far. I think that was the only question on the heat pump program. Okay, I think I got them all. Please, anyone, let me know if there was one that I missed.
I think you got it. Thanks, Michelle. Chair Fasoon?
Okay, does anyone else have anything on that? If not, we can. Committee Member Peterson?
Yeah, I think I wanted to emphasize, especially for the person who owns a building and is interested in this, please keep paying attention to this. But the pilot project was to figure out how would this work, how much leveraging can the city do versus what building owners will put in, who's interested, et cetera, et cetera. There isn't going to be a plan to roll out 15,000 per apartment building in Albany to do. We just don't have the resources to do that. So again, it's a pilot project to gain a lot of information for our staff and just how the whole process works, what the hurdles are, et cetera. So hopefully you'll stay tuned and we'll learn more about that. And maybe there will be a program that develops out of this, but we're on the learning curve right now.
Does anyone else have any comments? Okay, if not, can we move on to item 5-1?
Yes.
This is our presentations. Awesome. Okay.
Okay, I think we're going to try to keep this brief, just seeing the time, but we are going to provide a quick summary of the Inflation Reduction Act. The first half will just be general information, which is a lot on all the different areas the Inflation Reduction Act covers, with the focus on the climate and energy piece. We won't be diving into any of the other medical pieces of this. And note that this is not comprehensive, and I encourage you all to do your own research outside of this meeting if you have further questions on the meat of the Inflation Reduction Act, because there's a lot of it. Okay. So the Inflation Reduction Act, like I mentioned, among other measures, there are significant energy and climate change investments. It's the most money that's ever been put towards climate and energy in the state. It's about $369 billion total invested in climate solutions and environmental justice, which is a key component. With the Inflation Reduction Act, the U.S. could reduce its emissions 40% by 2030, which is significant. And as I mentioned, there is a significant emphasis on addressing environmental injustices and equity, so focusing on disadvantaged or underserved communities. And there's significant funding for state and local governments in the form of grants. And I believe the details of exactly how those grants will reach the state are still being figured out. So I don't have a ton of information on that today. So to break it down a bit, there's about $60 billion dedicated to clean energy technologies and green jobs, $9 billion dedicated to direct-to-consumer home energy rebate programs, which Michelle will dive into a little bit deeper. It extends clean energy tax credits, and it also provides tax credits for low to mid-income individuals to buy used clean air vehicles, about $4,000 there, and about $7,500 for new clean air vehicles. I believe that's supposed to be for everybody. $1 billion is allocated toward making affordable housing in this country more energy efficient. $30 billion is set aside for tax credits for solar panels, wind turbines, and batteries. $10 billion for manufacturing facilities to create those solar panels, wind turbines, batteries, electric cars, etc. $2 billion for retrofitting pre-existing vehicle manufacturing facilities into clean energy vehicle manufacturing facilities. $20 billion in loans for building clean vehicle manufacturing facilities, and $2 billion for clean energy research. About $30 billion is set aside for states and utilities for advancing clean energy systems, tax credits for clean air vehicles and clean fuels in the commercial sector. So we're talking buses, garbage trucks, tax credits and grants for reducing emissions from industrial plants, and I believe ports is included in that as well. $9 billion for federal procurement of clean technologies, including $3 billion for clean air vehicles for the USPS. So that's supposed to stimulate the market for clean air vehicles. And then it also establishes a methane emission reduction program to reduce leaks from natural gas production and distribution systems. Focusing a bit more on equity, there's $3 billion set aside for environmental and climate justice block grants for community-led environmental justice projects. $3 billion for a neighborhood access and equity grants program for affordable and clean transportation in underserved communities. $3 billion for advancing zero emission equipment at ports. So my apologies, I think this is a separate $3 billion from those $9 billion I mentioned earlier. And $1 billion for heavy duty commercial vehicles to transition to clean energy. Then many of you have probably heard of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. This is a $27 billion allocation that creates a national green bank, creates competitive financing that's available for states and local governments for clean energy projects. And as I mentioned, it's not yet 100% clear exactly how that money would reach the city. And $8 billion dedicated to clean energy projects that benefit disadvantaged communities. There's more, $20 billion for sustainable agriculture, research and development, $5 billion for forest conservation and urban forestry efforts, tax credits and grants for sustainable aviation fuel and biofuels as we make the transition, and $2.6 billion in grants for restoring coastal habitats and protecting vulnerable communities. Then even more that's sustainability related, $4 billion dedicated to addressing drought in the West, which is distributed to the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, $5 billion for forest. Oh, apologies, we just covered this. Okay, Michelle?
All right, so as Lizzie mentioned briefly, there are quite a few measures in here that are specifically meant for individuals and homeowners to help shift to clean fuels and also improve energy efficiency. The first of these is the electric vehicle tax credit. So the credits are going to vary to some extent because it's designed to increase the number of vehicles and batteries that are manufactured in America with American components. So it's also trying to shift the market in that way. But in general, it covers 30% of the cost of electric vehicles, up to $7,500 for new vehicles and $4,000 for used vehicles. And it gets rid of the manufacturer cap that was in place up till now, which basically got rid of the tax credit for certain manufacturers once they hit a number of EVs sold. So that's gone now, and it just depends on where the vehicle is manufactured. That's how much rebate you would get, or tax credit, sorry. And then this has also been extended to 2032. Or sorry, the EV charger tax credit specifically up to 2032. The solar tax credit has also been extended out to 2034. So it'll be 30% until 2032. And then in 2033, it goes down to 26 and down to 22% in 2034. And it also now includes battery storage in addition to solar panels. And then there is very extensive energy efficiency tax credits that are now available. They cover 30% of the cost of eligible projects, up to $1,200 per year. And that is renewed each year between 2023 and 2032. So people can receive that $12,000 every single year, theoretically. And that $12,000 actually bumps up to $2,000 a year if you install a heat pump or a heat pump water heater as part of your projects. So doing some extra incentives for that. The eligible items include windows, doors, insulation and air sealing, HVACs, water heaters, electrical work, and home energy audits. Next slide, please. And then there's also a separate program that offers electrification rebates. And these are actually upfront rebates. So they pay directly before you finish the project, which is pretty cool. These will be administered by the state. So that process is going to take a little bit longer. The tax credits kick in January, but we're expecting this program to probably take a year or two to roll out. But like I said, they do offer these upfront rebates. It depends on your income level, how much you get. So it covers 50% of the cost for moderate income households, and 100% of the cost for low income households, of course, up to the maximums. And those maximums are listed here in the graph on the right. And these are very significant sums. So for heat pump HVACs in particular, the maximum rebate is $8,000, which in some cases will actually cover the entire cost of the heat pump in more simple cases. And then, as it says, $1,750 for the heat pump water heaters, electrical panels are covered, stoves, dryers, wiring, and insulation envelope upgrades. So everything you need to get an all-electric home pretty much, with a total max rebate of $14,000. This isn't an annual system like the tax credits were. This is just a program lifetime maximum. Next slide. Oh, there we go. All done. Ran through it very quickly. But yeah, Lizzie and I can take any questions. Although, of course, noting, as Lizzie said, that it's all very new and there's lots of answers we don't have. Member Larson?
Thanks for that rundown. That was really helpful. I tried reading some of it. it's super hard to. So thank you for interpreting that. That's awesome to see that. Are you going to post this presentation someplace?
It should already be posted to your agenda packet.
Okay. All right. So question, is there a definition for clean energy vehicles? I'm just, does it include like hydrogen cell? Does it include natural gas? Because I still, every time that the garbage truck drives by that says running on clean natural gas, it just really irritates me. So just tell me the clean natural gas is not included. That'd be helpful.
I would have to double check. I don't believe it's included. And with all of these things, there are some pretty specific requirements. Like for the windows and doors, they all have to meet, or, all of the heat pump water heaters and everything, they all have to meet efficiency thresholds. The vehicles have a lot of requirements attached to them to be eligible for the rebates or to be eligible for the full rebates. But I don't remember all of it off the top of my head.
Okay.
And I think it does vary because I know that it was specifically called out that rebates for individuals to purchase electric vehicles, I think, differed from clean air vehicle, the large vehicles that maybe are more related to like an airplane that we're not quite able to electrify yet. So as Michelle said, I think there are some nuances that we didn't have the time to dive totally deep into, but
right. I especially was interested in the fleet vehicle kind of stuff because like I said, the garbage trucks are just such a greenwash. It's awful. But anyway, that's beside the point. So
I will say too that the bill in many ways is designed to transform the marketplaces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very specifically. So.
Yeah. Sorry if I can just ask a second question. Mm-hmm. So you touched on utility. There's some money for utilities, and I didn't quite catch what that was for because I'm an advocate for getting the utilities to pony up to be the battery of the community, because it just seems crazy that each individual person would have to buy a battery for their garage. So is it what's the incentive or what's the money for the utilities?
Without having read the specific text, I believe it's just for the transition of the infrastructure to be able to provide more electrical power versus natural gas power.
Okay.
I didn't read any specifics about how much is allocated towards battery versus how much is allocated towards more electric transmission lines.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Chair Fassoon, would you like to call on committee members?
Sure. Committee Member Peterson?
Yeah, to follow up on something Eric mentioned, I think people in general in Albany would be interested in this, but I know there's some, and maybe all we need to do is research what's out there, and I can provide Michelle or Lizzie with what I've come across. I think the Switches On has a really good page. You can go and plug in your location, your income, and see really what kind of rebates and benefits are available to you. But I think if we could find a really good link like that, where someone's already done the work of going through and pulling that information together and get that on our sustainability page, that might be a good thing to do.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be keeping an eye out as those start to develop. There is a good page on rewiringamerica.com that has some details. But yeah, as more kind of summaries come out, we'll be sure to keep an eye on it.
Right. I wouldn't think we'd want you guys to churn time doing that because there's going to be so many other people already doing it. Great. Well, good work. Thank you.
Okay. If there are no other questions, Chair Fassoon, up to you to open public comment.
Yeah, let's go on to, I see already 3 people with their hands raised, so we can jump over to public comment.
Okay. Elaine Stelton.
Hi, are any of these credits or rebates, rather, these rebates, are they available to apartment house owners? So let's say I need to replace a hot water heater or a regular heater. Would any of these rebates be applicable to me? Thank you. Look forward to hearing.
Okay. I'll just very briefly answer. I believe they would be anyone who owns a property. Okay. Lucinda Young.
Yes. So I had on Michelle's PowerPoint, it said that dealing with the energy efficiency tax credit of 30%, it said up to $1,200 per year, but then Michelle said up to $12,000 per year. So I'm just wondering if it's 1,200 or 12,000, if you could just clarify that. And then my second question was, Michelle, you had said that the rebates for under the IRA, the rebates for building electrification, that the state is going to administer those, and that there was going to be a delay, I guess. I'm just wondering, does that mean, you know, if we go ahead and install the, say, heat pump next January, we could expect like it's going to take about a year to get those upfront rebates? Because I thought a lot of people were counting on getting those pretty soon to help them defray the cost of the heat pump. So that's the first time, I mean, I've read a little bit about the IRA, but it's the first time I heard that there would be this delay. So you could give me whatever information you have on that. And the other suggestion I wanted to make, I think this PowerPoint is really good. And I know Lizzie said that it's attached to the agenda, but if it might be good to make it accessible to the public from the website. I think it's a really good summary of the major points of the IRA. And also, I seem to recall there is a link on the Albany website to the switches on, which I've actually gone to and is really great at helping you figure out what BayREN rebates are available. Thank you.
Michelle, do you want to quickly answer the rebate question, or rebate question?
Yeah, it's 1,200, 1,200. Sorry for misspeaking. I'm moving very fast. And should I wait to answer the other ones till the end?
We'll just do quick questions in between, but yeah, if they're longer answers, maybe we'll wait. Okay. Jeremiah?
Yeah, thank you. So I think I have 3 questions now. The first question is, you mentioned, $20 billion for this rebate, $20 billion for that, $15 billion for that, $4 billion for that. I was just wondering what the grand total of billions are. I was trying to do a running total in my head, and I think I was already up to like $250 billion. So I was just wondering if you had a grand total of these billions of dollars. And number 2, oh yeah, the most important question, or actually second most important question. My third is the most important. Second question is, what funds has Albany locked in on. All those billions of dollars. How many billions of dollars is set aside specifically for Albany? And third question is based on the public comment. Are these available for the average homeowner? That's a great question. And I think maybe the most easiest thing to do to redo your house energy efficient is possibly upgrade your single pane aluminum frame windows to double pane plastic frame. That's the number one thing to do to keep homes, energy efficient. It's the easiest. Well, actually, windows are pretty tough. I've done a lot of those aluminum frames myself, and ripping those out and installing them is a little challenge, but it's okay. It's manageable. So with that, the last thing I want to say is I don't want to take up all the time. It's just, is the windows part of the rebate? And if so, I think that's a great way to advertise to the public, an easy incentive, advertise to the city, the residents or the homeowners. We've got this new rebate out. Let's upgrade all these single pane aluminum frame to double pane plastic, because those single pane aluminum frame windows, there's so much condensation that builds up on the inside, as we all know, and which leads to health problems such as mold on the inside. So those are the ones directly related to health issues. That's it. Thank you. Keep up the good work, everybody. I love these meetings.
Okay, there are no other members of the public with their hands raised. I'll quickly answer some of those questions, Michelle, and then I'll send it to you. It's about $369 billion. Yes, rebates are available for homeowners and for cities and local governments, or individuals in cities and local governments, which includes homeowners. I encourage anyone who has questions on the specifics of the IRA to look up this presentation, which is on the meetings agenda web page on the city's website attached to this item 5-1. It is available publicly. And also, if you Google the Inflation Reduction Act, there's tons of resources available for interpreting the specifics. And with that, Michelle, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah. So as I said, $1,200 for the maximum tax credit per year. In terms of the delay for the rebate program, so the tax credits, the home energy tax credits, will be available January 1st next year, 2023. The larger scale rebate program has to actually roll out and be run by the state. It's a little bit more of an in-depth program, and we don't know when that's going to start. We're guessing 1 to 2 years, and so in all likelihood, heat pumps or other electrification projects that are done before that program begins will not be eligible. They'll just be eligible for existing rebate programs as well as the tax credits. Of course, there is always a possibility that they would make it retroactive, but I have no way of knowing that. So yeah, it probably is going to be a year or two before those funds become available. And people that are trying to install heat pumps or other equipment right now most likely won't be able to access those.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, this was just an informational item. Unless there are aspects of it the committee would like to discuss. I think Chair Fassoon, I'll defer to you to call on members of the committee or move us to discussion.
Yeah, does anyone have anything they would like to share? I just want to just keep in mind of the time. So does anyone have anything want to speak on this? Or Committee Member Peterson?
I'm just thinking that obviously this will evolve. You were talking about rebates that come back via the state. Boy, I hope it doesn't take them 2 years. That'd be horrible. But maybe we need to continue to have somewhat of an update on this in a way we can get the information out to Albany citizens about what would be helpful to them. At least a link to if there's some really switches on or something like that where they can go and get kind of a quickie summary, we should at least follow through on that.
Okay.
I'll also briefly note that we still do have our electrification website, the Albany specific one, and I will be adding information to that as I'm able to and as it becomes more clear.
Great. Okay, Chair Fasoon, it sounds like there's no more discussion.
Okay, and it looks like we can move on to item 6-2, which is, oh, sorry,
6-1.
6-1. The election of vice chair for the remainder of 2022.
Great. So just a quick note on procedure. We do have a chair, Chair Fasoon. Our previous chair resigned from the committee, so now we are going to elect a vice chair to serve for the remainder of 2022. There will be a new chair, vice chair election in January. The way this works is any member of the committee can nominate a member of the committee. Unfortunately, we are missing members of the committee. I'm not sure we can nominate someone who's not here. But that nomination does not need to be seconded. So you can just say, I nominate X, and then we will vote on names nominated in the order they were received. And as soon as someone gets a majority vote, they become the vice chair. Any questions on that procedure? Okay. Chair Fasoon, would you like to call on members?
Yeah, Committee Member Larson.
Yeah, I would like to nominate Committee Member Mohammed for Vice Chair.
Committee Member Mohammed, do you accept the nomination?
I just have some questions about what the vice chair does.
The vice chair is like the vice president. If our chair, Chair Fasoon, isn't able to lead a meeting, if she's absent, you would lead the meeting, and you are welcome to join our chair staff agenda prep meetings. It's low responsibility.
All right. I guess I accept.
Okay. Any other nominations for vice chair? Hearing none, I will take a roll call vote. Let me just pull up my list. Okay. Committee Member Larson?
Yes.
Committee Member Mickey?
Yes.
Committee Member Mohammed?
Yes.
Committee Member Peterson?
Yes.
Chair Fasoon?
Yes.
Okay, congratulations to Committee Member Mohammed, our new vice chair.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, back to you, Chair Fasoon.
Okay, there's nothing else on that. And then it looks like do we take public comment for that, or?
We can. Yeah, technically we can. Do any members of the public have comments on the vice chair election? I see we have one.
Yeah.
Jeremiah?
Yeah, congratulations, Member Mohammed. Thank you for stepping up the plate, and keep up the good work. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Great. Okay, there are no other members of the public with their hand raised.
Okay, now it looks like we can jump on into item 6-2, which is the proclamation for appreciation for Johnny.
Yes, and let me promote Johnny to panelist. Should be joining us here. Welcome, Johnny.
Thank you for having me. Good to be back and see all these familiar faces.
Johnny, would you like to briefly update the committee on what you have been up to in case anyone forgot or it's new information to them?
Sure. So I'm coming to you live from Minneapolis. I moved here with my partner about a month ago, and I'm in my third week of grad school pursuing my Master of Urban and Regional Planning. After 2 years with Civic Spark and 1 year with Albany, it was time to go get the education I need to be the planner that you all deserve. But Minneapolis has been wonderful. It's been a beautiful month, though, with the arrival of fall today. It arrived on time. Yeah. I don't know if there's anything else to share, but it was a wonderful end of summer.
Great. Thank you, Johnny. And at this time, we will be reading a proclamation of appreciation in Johnny's honor. Okay. City of Albany Proclamation of Appreciation in honor of Johnny Manhennett's term of service to the City of Albany. Whereas Johnny Manhennett has dedicated his time to serve the city as a Civic Spark Fellow, and whereas Johnny came to the City of Albany with a passion for sustainability, accessible transportation, social justice, and equity, whereas Johnny provided valuable research and assistance to enhance the city's urban canopy in a manner that advances equity, and whereas Johnny engaged all city departments, a number of CERT volunteers, and the Climate Action Committee in updating the local hazard mitigation plan. And whereas Johnny aided in researching electric vehicle charging technology, hosting focus group meetings, and working with building owners to further assess electric vehicle charging in multifamily properties. And whereas Johnny designed a flyer detailing SB 1383 waste diversion requirements that was disseminated to over 8,000 mailing addresses in Albany. And whereas Johnny engaged the community at the City of Albany's Community Expo, sharing resources and information about sustainability, electrification of homes and transportation, and waste reduction. And whereas Johnny always remained positive, even when faced with unexpected project setbacks, adapting quickly to challenges. And whereas Johnny's dedication and expertise have assisted the city in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, making an impact on global climate change. And whereas Johnny demonstrated the importance of public transportation by taking the bus to City Hall each day. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Albany wishes to express its sincere gratitude and appreciation for Johnny Manhennett's service term with the City of Albany to help foster a sustainable future, and wishes him the best in his future endeavors. And at this time, I will take any questions from the committee before we open it to public comment, before we do a vote. Any questions?
I guess I have a question is, do you need a motion?
Yes, maybe we should call for public comment first and then yes. Okay.
Yeah, I see a member of the public.
Perfect. Jeremiah?
Yeah, thank you, Johnny. Thank you for your service here in Albany. I do remember you, and I'm seeing your face in my head right now. And what a great guy you are. You brought a lot to the table, and I appreciate all your hard work. And keep up the good work wherever you're at. And hopefully we'll see you back in Albany someday. Congratulations. Keep up the good work.
Lucinda Young?
Yes, I want to thank Johnny as well for his service to our city. And I particularly remember some months ago, he gave I can remember a number of presentations, but one stood out. He gave a presentation on the bans on gas in new construction that various cities all over the state have in place, and the status of the litigation on it. And I was just really impressed with that. And I think it was just last week that our zoning committee recommended a change in our building code to require all electric and new construction. So anyway, was really impressed with the service that he gave to our community, and I'm glad that he's pursuing his education and want to wish him the best of luck. Thank you.
Great. There are no other members of the public with their hand raised. So Committee Peterson, back to you if you'd like to make that motion.
Yeah, so I make a motion to approve the proclamation.
I'll second. Thanks a lot, Johnny.
Committee Member Larson?
Yeah.
Committee Member Mickey?
Yes.
Committee Member Mohammed?
Yes.
Committee Member Peterson?
Yes.
Chair Fasoon?
Yes.
Great, motion carries. At this point, I think others can, share their thoughts.
Yeah, Committee Member Peterson?
Yeah, I just want to also second what members of the public said. I mean, Johnny, you did a great job. You came in super enthusiastic. I could tell right away you were a go-getter. And I'm really thrilled you're pursuing, further education in your field. I'm sure you're going to do really great. And Albany benefited from your hard work and dedication. So thank you so much.
I'll just chime in briefly to say that although Lizzie did a wonderful job on that proclamation, no proclamation can adequately express the joy and passion that Johnny brought every day in the office. And we really, really loved having him with us. We miss him, and I'm just so happy to see your face again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone's kind words. I hope to be back able to see you all soon, but I wish every member of this committee and in the public today well. It was a real pleasure working with Albany. It was the most positive work experience I've had in my short professional career, but I am excited to stay up to date with what you all continue to do, and I look forward to the chance that you have to meet the incoming Civic Spark Fellow soon.
Great. Thank you so much, Johnny, and so glad you were able to join us this evening all the way from Minneapolis.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. All right. That is it for item 6-2. Chair Fasoon, back to you.
Okay, if we don't have anything else on that, looks like we can move on to item 6-3, which is the 2022 Green Building Code update.
Yes. Can everybody see my presentation okay?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. So this is an update on green building and all electric requirements. And I'm just going to start off with some background and a timeline, particular because we have a new member and because it's been a little while since we last met. So all the way back in September of 2020, the committee recommended a green building resolution to the city council. And that resolution was adopted in January of 2021 as resolution 2020-127. And I'll chat a little bit in a moment about what exactly that included. But in May of 21, the Energy Commission approved that resolution and it went into effect. And then in December of last year, the council adopted an updated version of that resolution that changed a few things and extended it a little bit, which I'll also describe more in a moment. And then in June of this year, in our last meeting, we presented a draft all-electric requirement to the committee, which was at the committee's request from the spring. And just about a week ago, this month, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended the draft resolution that was included in your agenda materials tonight, and is based off of the comments that you made in our last meeting in June. And in January of this coming year, the new building codes will go into effect, the 2022 California State Building Codes. At that time, our current green building requirements will be void because they will be out of date. So this new resolution is meant to update and renew our green building requirements. So the all electric requirement is the biggest shift in this update to our green building requirements. Currently, we are requiring, or we are incentivizing all electric construction for new buildings. It is not required. The way it works is that mixed fuel buildings, so with electricity and natural gas, can be built, but they have to meet a higher energy efficiency threshold, which is a little more complicated and a little bit more expensive. So it's trying to push people towards all electric. However, this new resolution would require new buildings to be all electric with no gas appliances whatsoever. So that's the main shift that we see, and that's what we chatted about in our June meeting. Over 30 cities, mostly in the Bay Area, have passed similar requirements like this, in particular in the last year or two. And another big shift that's happened is that these all electric ordinances no longer have to be approved by the California Energy Commission, which simplifies the whole process and speeds it up. So the subject buildings for the all electric requirement in general are new buildings, although there's some asterisks there. And these notes that I'm about to go through were all feedback that the committee gave at the June meeting. So it matches the feedback that we received at that point. For ADUs, accessory dwelling units, new appliances must be electric. However, they can share existing gas appliances with the house. So what that means is in the case of, for instance, a garage being converted to an ADU, they could take the existing gas water heater that's already in the garage or in the house and pipe it into the ADU and use it for both units. That would be okay. But if you're building an ADU out in the backyard, you're putting in a new water heater, that new water heater has to be electric. Also in your garage ADU, you might be using your existing gas water heater, but if you're putting in a new stove, the stove has to be electric. If you're putting in a new dryer, the dryer has to be electric. So that's the way it would work with ADUs. We're also requiring that major renovations that are subject to our existing fire sprinkler requirement be all electric. So the fire sprinkler requirement, it's described on the right here, but basically it's renovations that change over 50% of the floor area. So these are pretty large. We have about 15 of them per year. And in most cases, they're already replacing the HVAC and water heating. So those projects would need to convert to an all-electric home. We also have a couple exemptions. First, for scientific laboratories. These are a bit more complex and sometimes have needs that can't be met by electric equipment at the moment. So for specific uses, they would be allowed to have gas appliances and would also be required to be electric ready. And then we have some general hardship and feasibility exemptions as well. And again, all of these were recommended by the committee at the last meeting. In terms of costs and benefits, all electric construction is now generally less expensive than mixed fuel construction. And that's because the new building code requires buildings to be electric ready, even if they are mixed fuel. So there aren't a lot of savings that come from building mixed fuel. And then you also have to pay for the installation of the gas line. So generally it comes out as a little less expensive, with the exception of some large multifamily buildings that have to use some rather new water heating equipment. In terms of greenhouse gas savings, Natural gas takes up about a third of the pie chart you see on the right here of our total city emissions. So this is a pretty significant sector. For single family buildings, going electric saves about 1 ton of carbon dioxide per year. For ADUs, about half a ton, and for multifamilies, about a quarter of a ton. So not huge numbers, however, they do add up over time. And also, of course, this would kind of get us on the glide path towards total electrification. So switching gears a little bit from the electric piece of this, there are also a few other measures that are related to green building more generally. So this lists out the residential measures that are in our current green building requirements. I won't go over all of them in detail, but there's permeable paving, Energy Star appliances, low flow kitchen faucets, low carbon concrete, low VOC or volatile organic compound resilient flooring, and then also for multifamily buildings, new multifamily buildings, 20% of parking spaces have to have level 2 EV chargers installed, and the rest of the spaces have to be EV ready. For non-residential buildings, we require solar panels to be installed across the solar zone, 12% of parking spaces designated for clean air vehicles, outdoor lighting power reduced, indoor water use reduced, and then the same concrete and resilient flooring requirements. So for most of these measures, we don't have any major changes in the updated resolution. There's a few places where the code numbers have changed and minor things like that. But there are a few places where things have shifted. So the first one is the outdoor lighting for non-residential buildings. As I mentioned, currently non-residential buildings need to reduce their outdoor lighting power, so the kilowatt usage, 10% from the KALB green or state standard. This is something it's very few projects and a pretty limited benefit because, lighting doesn't take up a huge amount of energy. And the issue with this is that it requires Energy Commission approval, and that's something that takes quite some time and would delay enforcement of the larger resolution and the all-electric requirements. And because we've shifted from the electric incentive model to the all-electric model, this is now the only thing that would require that commission approval. So by striking this, we could go without the Energy Commission and the whole thing would move faster. So because of that, staff recommends striking the measure so that we can expedite everything else. Next one is clean air vehicles. So currently we require 12% of spaces in non-residential lots to be reserved for clean air vehicles. These are zero emission, fuel efficient, and carpool or van pool vehicles. Basically things with HOV or carpool lane stickers. And it's just a striping kind of requirement, similar to like a disabled space. And this was taken from the voluntary tier 2 requirements in the previous code. So this is basically a list of measures that local jurisdictions can choose to require. And we picked this one. The new code has changed. So now those voluntary tiers for tier 1 is 35% of spaces and tier 2 is 50% of spaces. For this one, staff actually recommends keeping the requirement the same as it is currently at that 12%, rather than bumping it up to the newer tier 2. And the reason for that is that we're concerned that too high of a requirement could create some equity and accessibility issues. In particular, 50% of spaces are designated for these vehicles. In the short term, especially, you might have a lot of empty spaces where there aren't that many people with these kinds of vehicles, and then the street parking is full. And it could eventually become kind of a punishment for people that can't afford more efficient vehicles rather than an incentive for people. So that's why we recommend keeping it at 12% as it is right now. And then there's the non-residential solar requirement. So currently solar is required to be installed on the entire solar zone of new non-residential buildings. The solar zone is basically a roof area that's designed for solar, and it has to be 15% at least of the roof. And this is something that was described in the last code as basically a solar readiness measure. And the city of Albany decided, okay, we're going to take the solar readiness and we're going to go all the way. We're just going to make them actually put solar on it. Now there have been some shifts with the 2022 code that make this a little more complicated. The code is now actually requiring solar and storage for most kinds of non-residential buildings. And instead of being based on the solar zone, it's based on the square footage and the building type. So if you look on the right here in this chart, for instance, a retail store has to install 2.62 watts of solar per square foot. And so if the city were to keep our existing solar requirement, it would start getting pretty confusing because there are two different versions of a solar requirement, basically, and they would conflict, and it would just be really unclear. And staff felt that the code's new requirements really fulfill what we were trying to do, and they're a bit more specific and designed for different kinds of buildings. So we recommend striking our current requirement and just allowing the state code to take over with non-residential solar. So with all of that, the staff recommendation is for the for the committee to recommend that council adopt the draft resolution amending the City of Albany green building requirements. I'll also make a note that the Planning and Zoning Commission recently recommended this draft resolution to council with the one change that they wanted the council to increase the multifamily EV charger requirement from 20% to 30%. So if the committee chooses, they could match the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation. However, that's not the staff recommendation. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions. And Chair Fasoon, I'll let you call on members.
Yeah, Committee Member Peterson.
Yeah, so remind me about the energy efficiency vehicle parking requirements. That's really, I mean, to some extent, commercial parking, they're looking at an office building and people are coming to the office and maybe carpool vans. And so you have more of those. But then you think of Albany and go, well, Beverage and More, or a place like that. And no one's going to go to Bevmo in a carpool van. So one thing I was more interested in is trying to get EV charging spots in commercial parking areas. Do we have anything that requires that or no?
We don't have any local requirements at the moment for non-residential EV charging. At the time that we created our first resolution, we decided that it was sort of a lower priority because we have so few non-residential buildings, and in particular, so few with parking. So we felt like the clean air vehicle requirement was one that was very simple to adopt. And it kind of wasn't worth the effort of going to the EV charging requirements. That was the discussion.
You can't go retroactively and make existing places. So this would only be for new commercial, correct?
The clean air vehicle requirement?
Yeah.
It could be for existing if they're changing the parking lot or adding new spaces.
Yeah.
But it would generally be for new.
Yeah, well, shoot, I was hoping to try to get some more in just, in commercial areas. I know there was an effort to get one down where the Sprouts shopping was. I don't know if it ever happened, but
there are two chargers that have been partially installed in that lot now.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's the only question I had.
Member Larson.
Yeah, thanks. That was a good rundown on the changes. On the solar square footage versus the, okay,
solar zone?
Yeah, basically my question is, I understand the reasoning for your wanting to just ratify to the one code, and not have mixed, requirements. But did you do any analysis or have any sense of is the new code more? Does it end up with more or less solar than what we were proposing? That's my basic question.
Yeah, great question. The short answer is it depends. Our requirement was pretty simplistic. It was based on the solar zone, which can vary a lot from building to building and really has more to do with the roof area and roof design than the use of the building itself. This one is really designed to think about the average usage of these kinds of buildings and then require the roof design to match the energy needs. So in that sense, I think it's a little bit more advanced and thoughtful, which of course is easier for the state code to do than for us to do. In some cases, it might end up with less solar, but I think it's designed in a way to really meet the needs. And I think in a lot of cases would end up with more solar and also includes battery storage.
Okay, thanks.
Committee Member Mickey?
On the non-residential solar, has anyone actually tested what that means for a typical retailer, and if that actually means, I guess in my mind, I'm trying to understand, can you actually fit that amount of solar panels on most of our typical sized buildings in Albany? So for instance, the retail grocery, I'm less concerned about grocery because those tend to be pretty big footprint, but the retail buildings, we think on Solano, they're pretty small footprint. And I'm having a hard time translating watts per square foot to size of solar panel and area of roof needed, I guess, is where I'm going with that.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. In general, yes, it's doable. For the retail, for example, you need 2.5 kilowatts per 1,000 square feet. 1,000 square feet is about the average size of an Albany house, and most Albany houses with solar have 3.5 to 4 kilowatts of solar. So it's definitely doable. Of course, it depends on the design, but they're all within a reasonable range. And there are some exemptions if necessary.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Committee Member Peterson?
Thank you. So just following on that, again, this is for new retail, new commercial. What would solar panels be triggered? What would trigger, so, you've got a building on Solano and they do a major remodel. Is there some point where all of a sudden that would trigger putting in the solar?
That's a great question. I don't have a perfect answer to. It depends on the building code's definition of new construction, basically, and at what point really, really big remodels become new construction. I don't know that definition off the top of my head, but I think it's pretty extensive. It would have to be a very, very major remodel.
Yeah, okay.
Are there any other questions before we go to public comment?
Okay, looks like we can go over to public comment. I see someone with their hand raised already, so we can jump over to that.
Okay. Elaine?
Hi again. I just wanted to make sure I understood that this is regarding new construction and not existing construction. It seems like with the one exception being a major remodel, depending on how exactly, how much of a remodel it is and how that's defined. And then the other sort of gray area, if I understand correctly, would be a house that has an ADU that might be sharing a hot water heater or some other type of appliance. So please just let me know if I've got that right, that this is not existing construction. And thank you guys so much.
I'm going to go to the next speaker, Jeremiah.
Good evening again, everybody.
Oh, gosh. Jeremiah, are you?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you. I apologize. Sometimes the lower hand button and the remove permission to talk button are too close.
Oh, don't worry. Be happy. It's all good. So I'm a pretty chill guy. So, I really like this a lot. And I really like the solar panels. I remember, I graduated Albany High School in 2001. And I think my science teacher, Mr. Downing, was one of the first people in Albany to put solar panels on his roof. So yeah, Albany's been doing solar panels on the roofs for over 20 years now. And I just really like the solar panel thing going on. I know there's a lot of controversy about how solar panels, creating them with the silica and creating them causes a lot of, stuff in the environment. But I think overall, I support solar panels because long term, I guess it's beneficial. So yeah, I would just want to see more things available to the public, like at maybe the community center or something about, this program, how to get money for solar panels. So I don't know. I just really like solar panels. Oh, you know what? Just got an idea. All these apartments that we're putting these electric car charging stations on, could we also include installing solar panels on the same apartments? That way the solar panels help contribute toward generating the electricity for the pilot program with those 3 apartments. So maybe if we're doing the electric car charging stations, we could also hook the person up with, resources to get solar panels. It's be like a 2-in-1 thing. All right, cool. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, I do not see any other members of the public with their hand raised. So back to you, Chair Fasoon. Oh, and Michelle, sorry.
I can answer those questions if you'd like, Chair. In regard to existing versus new buildings, the all-electric requirements would be for new construction, including those major remodels that I mentioned and the ADUs. There are a few measures that would apply to existing buildings when they're getting a renovation, but these are much more minor things like permeable paving and getting Energy Star appliances. So there are a few things there for renovations, but the big things like all electric, like the EV chargers, solar, that's for new buildings. And I'll just note for Jeremiah that one of the buildings in the multifamily pilot does actually already have solar. But aside from out of our topic, anyways, yeah.
Okay, Chair Fasoon, I think we can go to discussion.
Yeah, let's move it on to discussion.
With the goal being for the committee to make a recommendation, whether it's the staff recommendation or the committee's own recommendation. But the plan is to take this to council soon so we can get the ball rolling. Chair Fasoon, can you please call on people?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask if I can make a motion to extend the meeting. I just think where we're at, I don't think we're going to be able to wrap this up in 15 minutes.
Yes.
So can I make a motion to extend, I don't know, 9:20, 9:30?
I'll second a motion to go to 9:30.
Okay.
Committee Member Larson,
Yes.
Committee Member Mickey,
Yes.
Vice Chair Mohammed,
Yes.
Committee Member Peterson,
Yes.
Chair Fasoon.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Meeting extended to 9:30.
Okay. Now we can go on. Committee Member Peterson.
Yeah, was just wondering if I'll sort of back off, but I was going to make a motion, but I'll wait to see what Member Mickey has to say.
Yeah, Committee Member Mickey.
Yeah, I'm going to apologize. I realized I had a question that I had not asked earlier. So it says at least one Energy Star washing machine or dishwasher per unit. I assume there's more language to it, and I'm hoping the language says if provided, right? We're not forcing necessarily that a washing. Okay, perfect, great.
Yes, it's all very summarized.
Okay, yeah, no, that's great. I love the summary. I would like to focus on the table really quick. I am not an expert in these things, but the non-residential solar, in practice, I do a lot of zoning code work, and a lot of the work we do is, working on main streets, and restaurants change to retail, retail changes to restaurants. These things happen all the time, right? They swap back and forth, and to me, there's kind of a really big disconnect between what a retail grocer is expected to provide and a restaurant. And I raise that only because that raises a situation when a use changes in the building that, like, all of a sudden you're not really getting what if a restaurant goes to retail, it's maybe not a major renovation, and so you're not actually getting the energy production. So I kind of question why those numbers are so disparately different versus our previous system, which was just based on roof area. I'm not going to necessarily make a motion to ask us to change those numbers, because those are probably done with someone who knows a lot more than I do, but just it's weird that they're so different. And if there was a change, I would ask, is I'm not sure why office, retail, and grocery just wouldn't be the same number. One of the things we do when we do zoning code work is we try and keep things simple. So if numbers are that close, why not just make them the same? So that if an office space were to transition over to a retail space, there's no minor zoning code change in the number of wattage they're supposed to be provided. The restaurant, again, and retail numbers are dramatically divergent. So I'm not going to propose that we try and think about that. That's where my mind went when I saw this table. I was trying to understand why they're so divergent. So
I can just offer a bit of context, although I don't have that much. Yeah, this is the state building code, and I know that there's a lot of studying and averaging and things that go behind these numbers. I don't have a lot of insight into what exactly they are, and it's possible that there are sort of negotiations happening behind the scenes of this too. I wouldn't be surprised by that. I think there's definitely a possibility with restaurant retail changes for it to kind of get mixed up. Although, what your point was about simplicity, there is a certain level of simplicity in sticking with state codes where we can, rather than changing them, even if the state codes themselves are a little complex. So there's some things to balance there. But I do know that there was a lot of research that went behind these, so I'm sure there is at least some degree of logic in some of the things that seem a bit silly.
Do we know, this would be a follow-up question. Do we know if the city of Berkeley is adopting or is in the process of, they must be in the process of adopting new green standards as well?
Yeah, I don't know a ton of detail about what they're working on. Their all electric requirements don't have to go with the code cycle because they did it in a different way. But they have some other green building requirements that are going through this. As far as I'm aware, they haven't made any changes to non-residential solar.
Okay. And then Michelle, the last question is: you said major upgrades, so I'm going to assume if someone is doing just electrical work in their restaurant, in their retail store, that's not necessarily going to trigger this. All right, perfect.
Yeah, those major upgrades are much bigger and change and remodel floor area and all kinds of things.
I'm not making a motion to change any of those numbers. So if anyone's waiting for me to make I'm not making a motion. I will make a motion, since I'm not hearing anyone, to accept staff's recommendations.
Sounds good. Go for it.
Sorry, that was a motion to accept staff's recommendation and forward this on to City Council.
Committee Member Larson?
Yes.
Committee Member Mickey?
Yes.
Vice Chair Mohammed?
Yes.
Committee Member Peterson?
Yes.
Chair Fasoon?
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries. Also, can someone please confirm with me, we did take public comment, correct? Yes.
Correct.
Thank you. Just wanted to double check. Okay. All right, Chair Fasoon, back to you.
Okay. Does anyone else have any last remarks on this? If not, looks like we can move on. Okay. Looks like we can move on to item 6-4, which is the CPUC proposed changes to net energy metering.
Okay, thank you. So I'll go ahead and start off with net energy metering itself and what it is, often abbreviated as NEM. And this is a utility program that allows people who have rooftop solar panels to sell their excess energy back to the grid. So for instance, when their solar panels are on the roof generating lots of energy at noon and they're away at work, they're not using that energy, it's sent back to the grid, it's used for other buildings, and they receive full retail rates for each kilowatt that's exported. So usually on average, people pay about 24 cents per kilowatt around here. And so they would receive that rate back as a credit on their bill. So for instance, you know, if you use 300 kilowatt hours in a month and your solar produces 200 kilowatt hours, you only have to pay for 100 kilowatt hours of electricity. At the end of the year, if you've actually produced more electricity than you've used, you get surplus payments. And those are paid at market rate. So that's the kind of base amount that the utilities are actually paying for electricity, which is usually closer to 5 cents. So this program, it allows homeowners to benefit from their solar generation, even when they're not actively using it. And this program has been very successful. It's been around for quite a few years. There are about 500 NEM customers in Albany and over 1 million in California. And it was introduced to try to encourage the adoption of rooftop solar and has been very successful in that. Now, there are some concerns with the current program as it exists today, in particular, how it's changing or how the rooftop solar situation is changing in the state. In particular, because it requires the utilities to pay more than the electricity is actually worth on the market. So as I said, the retail rate is about 24 cents per kilowatt hour, and that's what people receive as a credit. However, the utilities, when they pay for solar on the market, are usually paying about 5 cents. So it's effectively a subsidy of about 80 to 90%. And those added costs that the utility is paying are then put onto the other ratepayers. So a study recently found that per year per household, ratepayers without solar are paying about an extra $100 to $200 to subsidize the NEM program. And that's something that's increased over the last few years as solar has become much, much more popular throughout California. Another concern is that it doesn't incentivize battery storage, because you can receive retail rates for your solar any time of day when it's producing it, even if you're not storing that energy. It doesn't create much of an incentive for people to get batteries to store the energy, because it's worth just as much to them. And this is something that's been becoming more of a concern, because managing peak demand is really essential for decarbonizing our grid. Even if we have a ton of solar generation at noon, if we don't have the solar at 6 o'clock when everybody's using electricity, then we have to revert back to using fossil fuels. And then finally, there are equity concerns. There are much lower installation rates in low-income areas, and those ratepayers are still responsible for subsidizing them, even though they're not really benefiting from it in many cases. So because of all of these concerns, the California Public Utility Commission is in the process of updating the NEM program. It's going to be referred to as NEM 3.0. And the proposed changes at the moment are, first of all, to lower the payment for exported electricity from the retail rate to the market rate, as you can see here at the bottom, going down from the 24 cents per kilowatt hour to just about 5 cents, so much lower. And then also charging customers monthly for the grid costs of using the grid to send the electricity both back and forward. So this would be starting at about $6.40 per kilowatt of solar each month. So for instance, if you had a 3 kilowatt solar system, you'd be paying about $20 a month. And that will raise over the course of 4 years to $8 per kilowatt. So the big shift in terms of the payback for someone who's buying a solar panels to put on the roof, right now, the average is about 6 years for it to pay for itself through utility bill savings. But with this new NEM 3.0, it would double to about 12 years. Of course, it would still pay back in about 12 years, and it is still a benefit for those consumers, but it would take longer, and they wouldn't be receiving so many bill credits. So in terms of the timeline for how this is working, the proceeding actually started back in December of 2020 with studies and guiding principles. There were party proposals in March of 2021, testimony and hearings, a lot of people talking about different ways to do this. And then in December of 2021, the CPUC released a proposed decision, which is what I just described to you a moment ago. Throughout the spring and summer, there were many, many comments received, and the deadline was extended for the decision because there were so many comments. And now at the end of this month, it's expected that there will be a new proposed decision. We've kind of heard that the people at the CPUC are working on edits that were responding to the comments received. We don't really have that much firm details about what the new proposal might look like, how new it might be, if in fact it's going to be released at the end of the month, or if it's really changing that much, and kind of what the timeline looks from here. It's all somewhat foggy, to be honest. But there is a new deadline for the final decision, which is in August of next year. So that's kind of a summary of the changes. There have been a lot of arguments on both sides about whether NEM needs to change, whether it should change in this way, the benefits and costs of different solutions. And that's sort of where we're at the moment. In terms of possible next steps, the committee does not need to do anything. A motion does not need to happen tonight. However, if the committee wishes, you can recommend that council send a letter in favor of or in opposition to the changes and the current NEM 3.0 proposal, or specific parts of it that you wish to see or not see. If you have specific thoughts, it's important that the motion clearly state those so that staff can draft out a letter that follows that. And if the motion carries, then staff will prepare that letter for the council, and they can either vote for it or not. I think it's important to note that there is a new proposal being prepared by the CPUC, so it may be more relevant for the committee to kind of wait and see what changes that has and whether it wants to send a letter at that time. However, you know, the committee can do it now if they prefer, since we don't really know that much about what the future holds. And separately, individual CAC members can provide public comment to the CPUC on their own behalf at any time, and that can happen outside of the committee. So lots of options, including do nothing. And that's the end of my summary of this quite complex topic. So happy to answer any questions again. And I'll let Chair Fassoon take it away.
Yeah, Committee Member Peterson.
Yeah, I'd love to know where you got your data from, because it's almost verbatim the investor-owned utility argument of the cost shift, which is actually pretty disingenuous and not accurate. So the cost shift argument has been shown by many people to be very selective and underhanded. For example, people that have insulated their homes use less energy, but they don't get charged extra for that. You know, I have a solar system. I get the retail rate to offset my own use, but beyond that, I don't get retail rate and make a ton of money. I don't at all. I get like 3 or 4 cents. So I'm actually, you know, giving that free power to, you know, practically free to PG&E, and they're selling it off to someone else. Plus, they spent nothing for the generation. It was all my own money that paid for it. On top of that, with the tax they want to pay, that goes on forever. I'm going to buy my solar system back from PG&E over my payback period. So I don't see how you came up. My original payback was only about 10, it was up at 10 or 11 years. Now it'll be up way more than that. And, you know, you must be talking about really small systems. There are incentives for doing battery. It's called time of use charges. You know, PG&E has moved the time of use charges to high when solar is not really even happening. You know, the low goes all the way to 2 in the afternoon. So there's a big incentive to have batteries to shift your use to save some of that solar in batteries so can you use it later. You know, I've spent a lot of time looking at this, and from my point of view, the investor-owned utilities are very profit-motive. They're monopolies. They're manipulating their weight. They're using lobbyists. They're using organizations that they have funded that they call grassroots. And they tried to do an end run around the whole process while the process is going on by putting in an assembly bill that they forced the unions to put in. The unions are contractually obligated to support the utilities because on contract it says they will fight with the utilities against any competition. Solar panels are competition to PG&E, and the whole thing with NEM 3, by the way, they didn't stop the ruling on NEM 3 because of the outcry. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of people writing in saying this is absurd, going and attending rallies and meetings, 7 hours of public comment with maybe only 5 comments in support of NEM 3 and the hundreds of others against. None of what they're doing now has anything to do with those public comments. The only reason they stopped was because Governor Newsom made a comment, and he hasn't come out pro one way or the other. He made the comment that we need to think about this further, and they shut down. They've been totally opaque. They finally came out with more comments wanted, but just on a glide path to go from NEM 2 to NEM 3. No changes to NEM 3. So I fully expect them to push this through.
Can I ask for a point of order?
Yes.
Nick, I completely appreciate everything you're sharing with us, but I think we're at the point where we're asking questions. I don't
Well,
believe
that was my
we're taking public
question. So
comment.
my question was, where
Okay,
did you get your
sorry.
data?
You did start with a question, but you went beyond that.
So the question was where did we get the data?
Correct.
Largely from the CPUC, as well as a variety of other sources.
I think, Michelle, the cost data comes from the analysis that was conducted by the third-party consultant that the CPUC hired. And that information, I think, is detailed in the PDF we attached to this agenda packet.
Yes, that's
Yeah, it's all under control by the utilities. That was their consultant. So I mean,
Nick, do you have a question? Because I think.
Yeah, my question is, why aren't we digging deeper in this? Because I certainly gave you guys more resources to look into this because I brought the subject up.
I will, Michelle, if it's okay, jump in. We tried to focus only on reading government provided resources. There is a lot of information out here from various sources. It's very hard to Google neutral analyses of NEM 3.0. So we deferred to government provided resources since those are legally obligated to be neutral. So
I'll also add, sorry, Lucy.
No, go ahead.
This is a very, very complex topic with a lot of ins and outs. And, you know, we're really trying to dedicate our time to a lot of local projects and summarizing this as best as we can in a short time frame.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for doing that. So I guess my question is, you know, do we have more time to provide the committee with other information that challenges what the CPUC has put forward because it's highly tainted?
I would suggest that if further analysis is wanted and it's not to come from neutral government sources.
The government sources, CPUC is not neutral.
I apologize. Do you mind if I finish what I was going to say? I think that if you want further analysis into this, just note that Michelle and I probably spent a total of 8 hours combined time in the last few weeks working on this presentation and the memo. We can use that time to do further analysis on NEM 3.0 if that's coming from other allocated time towards other projects. If committee members would like to propose their own memos, I think that would be welcomed. We can add another space for this on next month's agenda. And at that time, like Michelle mentioned, we might have more information from the CPUC or just an update on what the timeline is. So I think that is something we can definitely do. Are there other questions?
Is that a Committee Member Peterson? Is that a new question or is that just an existing hand raised? Oh, okay.
I do see we have members of the public with their hands raised. Are there other committee member questions before we go to public comment? Seeing none, Chair Fasoon, do you want to open it to public comment?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Lucinda?
Yes, thank you. I am deeply concerned about CPUC's proposal, and I would love to, I'm a solar, rooftop solar owner from about 7 or 8 years ago. And what I'm deeply concerned about is, I mean, even under the best case scenario, under CPUC's analysis, that it's going to double the payback period. I mean, this is going to be a huge deterrent to people who are considering solar. And even with the Inflation Reduction Act, you know, extending the tax credits, which is all positive, this is a huge negative. It just, I think it's wrong, just going in the wrong direction. You know, we're in a serious climate emergency. We need to be encouraging people to install solar, rooftop solar. So I'm really concerned. And also the analysis that it's costing the non-solar customers between $100 and $200 a year doesn't take into account that, you know, middle income people like me really went out on a financial limb to install solar on our roof, which benefits not just me, but it benefits the community. I produce, my extra solar goes to the grid. It provides a benefit to the community. And that just doesn't seem to be taken into account here. So I would really like to hear if other members, Chair and Member Peterson, mention that there is that Michelle's analysis is really the CPUC's analysis. I would like to hear the other views as well, and perhaps at next month's meeting. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Jeremiah?
Yeah, same thing. I'm no one way or the other. I'm really just abstaining from my comments. But I do want to say one thing. I do appreciate the staff's time doing this. I mean, the 8 hours you mentioned, that is quite a bit of work. I mean, so I just want to acknowledge the fact that you did put a lot of time into this. And, nothing's perfect. But we're all trying our best to create solutions. And you know what? That's why we have public comment like this, right? It's because staff does their best they can and they present something, and then we rely on public comment and feedback to help make something better and to improve things. So yeah, I mean, nothing's ever perfect, but at least we're all trying. We're trying the best we can with the resources we have. And I just want to say, staff, you do so much. And I just want to give you some credit for everything you do. And just keep up the good work. And that's about it. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay. David Wemmer?
Yeah, I would like to echo everything that Lucinda said, and also Mr. Peterson. I would like to hear some other viewpoints on the issue. I think it's just critical that we do everything we can to incentivize the installation of solar panels. It seems like we have a fair amount of time before a final decision. It sounds like we're going to have a draft decision in the somewhat near future. So I guess we'll have more opportunities to send letters and such to the PUC. So at least I feel good, like we're not up against a deadline that's next month for a final decision. So it'd be nice to understand the other points of view, because this does, when I was listening to your presentation, it just sounded like a PG&E presentation, and it seemed very one-sided. It would be nice to have some more input, more information for the next meeting next month. And thank you so much for the work you put in for this presentation.
Okay, I do not see any other members of the public with their hand raised, so back to you, Chair Fasoon. Oh, I do apologize. We had one hand pop up. One more public comment. Elaine?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure I understood something about solar panels. it's not financially worthwhile to put them in unless you need to replace your roof or unless your roof is quite old. That was sort of my takeaway talking to a friend who was actually a CFO at a company that sold solar panels, but obviously we were good friends, so she wasn't going to try and put one over on me. So that was my takeaway on it. And then listening to the conversation tonight didn't make it sound like this poor gentleman who's a commissioner is going to have to be waiting, years to pay PG&E back. It just doesn't sound like a very good deal for the consumer. That was my takeaway. Thanks.
Okay, I see no other members of the public with their hand raised now. Back to you, Chair Fasoon.
Okay, should we around discussion? Does anyone have any comments on this? Or okay, Committee Member Peterson.
You're
muted.
Apologies for getting emotional. You guys spent 8 hours. I spent hundreds of hours on the phone, attending CPUC commissions, speaking, writing to the governor, going to rallies, really pursuing this. So I've been very well informed on the arguments and on PG&E's efforts and the utilities' efforts to really capture and dominate the solar market and kill the rooftop solar market in California. This happened in Nevada in 2015. Their version of the CPUC just snuck something through, and the solar industry completely collapsed in Nevada. And it took 2 years for the citizens of Nevada to fight back and actually pass legislation that threw it out and brought their NEM back so that they could have a solar industry. So this is going to be a huge hit. The argument goes that because wealthy solar owners are getting this great deal and ripping everybody off, poor people are paying them. So we need to charge them extra per month just to be connected to the grid. And we're going to treat all the solar panel owners as one huge conglomerate generator, and we're only going to pay them retail, the wholesale rate. So this is completely ass backwards to what the federal government is doing right now, trying to encourage more rooftop solar. It's a big step backwards. They tried it in Florida and DeSantis shot it down. I don't know what's wrong with Newsom. So it's hugely backwards. The investor-owned utilities, which are monopolies, which have to make a profit, and PG&E made the largest profits they ever made in just their last few quarters. They fully recovered on their bankruptcy and everything, and they're just trying to make more and more money. So they have the resources to manipulate the CPUC and others, and they've done it. They've manipulated Haas Business School. They've done contributions, and they've done the math, and the math is very simplistic. It just treats all of rooftop solar as one big, huge conglomerate generator, and that all those should only be paid retail, wholesale, which is ridiculous because we're all individual owners who put our own money into our system. So we have the right to use our own generated solar power at full retail, and then we can pass the excess on and should get at least some reasonable wholesale rate for it. We already pay grid connection charges. I pay $10 or $12 a month for grid connection charges, just like everybody else that's supposed to go for supporting the grid. And on top of it, I generate power right where everybody needs it. So we don't really need all those long distance power lines. But the utilities want them because they make guaranteed 12 to 3% profit off installing and maintaining long distance power lines. So there's this huge thing out there that's going on. And frankly, it's not like it's preliminary, as someone said. When the preliminary decision came out, they were going to ramrod it through, but the political fallout was so high, Newsom had to make some statement, and they're all sitting tight. Meanwhile, when they did the extension of Diablo Canyon, they tried to shoehorn something in there that would have implied that solar generators didn't deserve to get full credit for what they had. So we had to fight and get that stripped out. So this is very, very heavily fought and controlled data that's going on. And we really need to hear the other side of this, because you go to CPUC Public Advocacy Office and they just right there have just printed out exactly what the investor-owned utilities want them to say. That's not the situation. The situation here is that we need more solar. We can't meet our goals of 100% clean generated energy just by having the utilities build big solar farms all over the place and long distance power lines. They can't produce enough. We have to have rooftop solar. This is going to kill rooftop solar in California if it goes through the way it's engineered now. And that's exactly what they're going to do. And it's going to happen the end of this month. They're going to make their decision. And then we're going to have to go out and rally and fight in October. So it's all happening. It's been going on for more than a year. They were supposed to be done back in December, but because of all the political fallout, they're trying to wait it out. So it's just very frustrating that the full picture isn't really being explained, or the other side. It isn't a cost shift. The cost shift is the high prices that this monopolistic system imposes on all of us. My rates just went way up too. I'm paying like 25 cents even when it's cheapest. So we're all getting screwed. And the utilities are saying, why should the rich people only get solar when low income people can't get it? When actually there are people of low income that are actually benefiting from solar now, but they don't tell you that. So basically they want a NEM3 that will ensure only rich people will get solar, and the utilities who want to maintain control of it. So that's I can certainly provide, I'll give you all my information that I have, and we can do it. But that's really what we're up against. And if the new NEM3 goes through, the rooftop solar industry in California is going to collapse.
Right. I think just to clarify, I think what I said earlier was I have received the information you sent me previously. I think if you or any other members of the committee would like to summarize what you have read, I would encourage you to do that, because, as I said, Michelle and I, we are supposed to be neutral. We're supposed to take information from neutral sources. And we've done that, and we've put a lot of time into this. And I would say if other sources want to be used that we maybe ethically aren't supposed to draw from, I would encourage a committee member who doesn't have to be unbiased to create that presentation for the committee.
Yeah, well, I wish I could believe that. Unfortunately, the CPUC has been heavily manipulated through the influence of, the money and the lobbyists of the. I mean, this is ongoing historically for quite a long time, and it's part of the problem we've had with monopolistic utilities in California. So, I mean, I fully understand why you went to the CPU website and you pull up their information. You can just regurgitate it. It's not. It's a whole point of view that is heavily manipulated to benefit the investor-owned utilities. So it's not impartial and it's not neutral.
Chair Fassoon, do you want to call on members?
Yeah, Committeemember Larson.
I was going to say, in the interest of time, that the presentation was. Thank you for the information. Thank you for the passion on the comments and everything. I'm kind of with you. It's been a long process, and we all are very frustrated by the NEM 3.0 outcome. And the question was, did we want to have a committee resolution to the city council to say something? And I mean, here I am in the Climate Action Committee. I feel like, yes, I want to say something, but I mean, at this point, I'm not sure that it's worth the time to try to craft a resolution and have city council do anything. I mean, if we had Nick, if there was a way to get the counter arguments and counter information, that'd be great. But like you said, the decision's gonna be made in the next month or so. And so I don't know. I'm just feeling like don't feel the energy to create a resolution to try to get city council to say something at this point. We're frustrated. It doesn't represent any kind of strategy for the state. That's, I think, the most frustrating thing to me is that, like Nick said, it doesn't represent a strategy for addressing climate action. It's a very investor-owned, profit-based argument, and it's so frustrating to have that in this day and age when solar is such a critical part of the climate response. So I would vote for not trying to make a motion right now. If we want to get more information in the next meeting, I would welcome that, but I'm not in a position to try to put that together.
Also, real quick, we should make a motion to extend the meeting because we have about 3 minutes left. Would anyone like to make a motion to extend the meeting?
I'll make a motion to extend the meeting for 10 minutes.
So to 9:40 p.m.?
Yeah.
Second.
I've got an early day tomorrow, so I'm pretty well getting to the end.
All right. Committee Member Larson?
Yes.
Committee Member Mickey?
Yes.
Vice Chair Mohammed?
Yes.
Committee Member Peterson?
Yes.
Chair Fasoon?
Yes.
Okay. Back to discussion.
I don't believe anyone has a member. Larson, you made a motion?
No, well, I mean a non-motion. So,
okay.
I mean, I was suggesting that we not try to create a motion. I mean, I'm not in favor of creating a motion. I think that there's been so much discussion.
Can I offer a motion?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we ask staff to come back to us with the new proposed PCU guidance, right? 'Cause my understanding is they are going to release a whole new version. So us saying anything about this version is, unless we're going to say we're completely against it, I don't see how anything we do today helps us, because we're going to be looking at a whole new draft when it comes out. So I would make a motion that we ask staff to come back with this item when the new draft is released.
We can definitely do that. And as Michelle mentioned earlier, and we've been chatting with a local government rep from the CPUC who is not allowed to give us any information beyond expect to see one potentially by the end of the month. And there's no clear date for when it would be voted on. But if by next month there's something available and it hasn't been voted on, we will definitely bring it back. I will put that down as future agenda items. Committee Member Peterson?
Do we need to, I mean, Member Mickey made a motion. Do we really need to make a motion to ask you to do that, or?
No.
Okay.
You're actually not allowed to, so.
No, okay, well, then.
Okay, I agree.
However it has to be phrased.
Yeah.
I agree with both Larson and Mickey, and I would love to provide some information to share too. It is really a complex issue, but it's a very vital issue. So, and I agree, we can't really go to the council and say this. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure that the NEM3 that's going to come out at the end of this month is going to be pretty close, if not exactly, to what was proposed in last December, which is really grim. But anyway, we'll have it on the next agenda.
We'll have it on the next agenda, and I'm imagining it would be a staff update similar to what you saw today with the facts of what's included in it. And then Committee Member Peterson, if you'd like to create a presentation on the analyses you've read, or provide a memo or provide an attachment, we can include that as well.
Right, right. That'd be great. And, you know, I'm just really immersed in this issue right now. It's very passionate for me. So I didn't mean to, you guys have done a great job. And frankly, I realize it's frustrating trying to get the right information, and it is frustrating when you're up against such powerful sources and they're getting, manipulating things sort of the way they want people to see them. But anyway, I'll try to help out. Thanks.
Also, I don't want the message from this to be that staff was manipulated by what we read. I just think, like I said, we're supposed to be unbiased. And so we're supposed to only really rely on sources that are supposed to be, I hear what you're saying, but from unbiased sources. So we did go to a government website. But like I said, I think it will, you are welcome to provide your presentation, and we can attach articles and a memo that you create as well.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I phrased that rather badly. I mean,
that's fine. I think we can leave it. I think we're clear.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing the time, it is 9:32. We have 8 minutes, and we do have to take public comment on anything we discuss. So Chair Fasoon, up to you. I think we're done with this item.
Yeah, just to move things along, I think we can go to public comment.
Oh no, we're on
sorry.
6-5.
6-5, no more public comment. Okay. Okay, let's go on to item 6-5, home electrification mandate proposal subcommittee presentation.
Well, that's me, and I'm willing to hold this till next time. We can't do it in 8 minutes, and I realize we're going to lose our quorum. So I don't think there's anything really urgent on this, and I'm more than happy to just have it roll to the next agenda.
Okay. So
okay, so we're
6-5.
Okay, so should we jump down to subcommittee updates?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, let's jump to, or actually, committee member Mohammed and I can start that off for the student outreach and engagement subcommittee. So we discussed a little outside of our meetings, and we had an idea that we wanted to kind of see how people would feel about it. So we're thinking like we could make presentations on climate education for children in the district and reach out to some elementary schools so we could present to them or hold some kind of forum. This would be kind of our way of engaging, especially like starting young, like elementary school, like Cornell and all those, Ocean View and all that. Yeah, and it would kind of just be like elementary school level about climate action and just like important things like what is recycling, what is composting, like how can you do this stuff at home? Super simple stuff like that. And that was kind of our idea. And we would obviously talk to the teachers and stuff, but maybe in their science classes present. We just wanted to see how you guys would feel about that and if that's an idea we should go ahead and pursue or if there's any feedback on that. Yeah, Committee Member Larson.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think going to elementary schools is a great idea, especially if high school kids were presenting to elementary school kids. I bet you'd get a very receptive audience. I guess I would just ask that you include what fossil fuels are. And, I think there's so much misinformation about what fossil fuels are and what it does to the environment. And I think you can make it understandable for an elementary school level. So I would include that.
Yeah, thank you for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Committee Member Peterson, are you raising? Okay, Committee Member Peterson.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Greta Thunberg, and the generation that's coming up through elementary school and earlier are really, they're going to live it. They're going to live in this new future that we have created for them. And I don't think, not that we want to depress them or anything, but going in and doing some feel good, here's how to be green and recycling stuff, that's kind of old history in my mind. I think it's important to talk about the challenges and what we need to do now and that we all need to participate and be involved. And, as kids, they need to have a pretty strong awareness of that. So I think touching on climate change, touching on, the inequities of it, the history of how it came about, and who the players are important things for kids to know even at an elementary school age. Again, teachers may think very differently about that, but that's just my thought, is that put an element of the reality and the bigness of what we're up against, because I think they'll feel more challenged and want to do more knowing that.
Yeah, our intention is definitely to not like scare them and have like, oh my gosh, we're doomed, but definitely kind of just have an inspiring touch on it. Like, yeah, I can do something even as, an elementary school student. And then when they continue their education and go middle school, high school, and if they further just kind of keep that information in the back of their mind as that information continues to get more scientific and have, more concrete understanding of these issues. I don't know, committee member Mohammed, do you have anything to add to that, ideas or thoughts?
Yeah, for this subcommittee, I really wanted to focus on climate literacy as a whole. So like you said, like talking about recycling and all that stuff, it's not enough anymore. And I think a lot of people already know about this, but I think younger children also really need to know about climate change and what's actually happening in the world and like how much it's going to affect them in the future. So I probably want to focus this on like a series of presentations. So we would talk about multiple topics and multiple different like presentations and stuff like that. So that is something that we will definitely think about in this.
Yeah, and if this all sounds good to everyone, we'll definitely sorry, go ahead. Committee member Larson.
Just one last thought is you probably already know the Climate Reality Project, the Al Gore organization. I did the training through that, and it's a fabulous presentation, and they've got lots of resources, and I would imagine that they have something for all different age levels, so that might be a resource.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I'll definitely look into that, and yeah, so if that all sounds good, then we will connect outside of this meeting and kind of draft up something and start to connect with local teachers about that for next steps.
Okay. Thank you, Outreach and Engagement Subcommittee. That's exciting. Zero Emission Transportation Committee, and also please note the time. In about a minute or two, we should extend in order to accommodate public comment.
Nick, I would say we've got an update, but we can do it for next meeting.
Yeah, I agree. It's not critical.
Yeah.
Okay. Any public comment on this item? Please raise your hand. I'm not seeing any members of the public with their hand raised. It's back to you, Chair Fassoon.
Okay, if the Zero Emission Transportation Subcommittee chose to move their agenda item to next week, then we can go to item 7, which we kind of touched on, which is future agenda items.
Yes. And the net energy metering is already included, and subcommittee updates will be included, and Committee Member Peterson's home electrification subcommittee item will be rolled onto the next agenda as well.
Okay.
Any other requests before we go to public comment quickly? If not, we can open it up to public comment. I see one hand. Okay, Lucinda.
Yes, I'm just going to be very quick. A concern I have, new state law went into effect at the beginning of the year that requires all organic matter to be composted, which I'm sure you're all aware of. And although I noticed that Albany Memorial Park, we have some compost containers, and also along the under the BART trail, but there are none on Solano Avenue. And organic waste in the landfill is a major source of methane emissions, big contributor to climate change. So I just think we need along Solano Avenue to have a 3-bin system. We've got recycling, we've got landfill, but there are no compost containers. And I actually had an experience just recently where I was picking up some waste, some food waste, and I couldn't find any place to dispose of it. I ended up taking it home, but most people would just stick it in the landfill. That's it.
Okay. I don't see any other members of the public with their hand raised. So back to the committee. Any last future agenda item requests before we close? Okay, to you, Chair Fasoon.
Okay, with that, it looks like we can adjourn our meeting. Our next meeting is October 19th. And yeah, thank you, everyone.
Hey.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.